In the east of Ukraine, the Ukrainian military continues to make gains against Russia. Our chief international correspondent Ola Guerin reports now from the newly liberated city of Kupiansk.
This is Kupiansk, a shattered city. Ukraine calls it liberated territory. During our visit, it doesn't sound that way. Every few minutes, more shelling. And it's soon very clear that war isn't far away.
Well, we've just had to run and take cover in the building. There's been what sounded like heavy incoming fire. It's pretty clear that the Russians are continuing to target Kupiansk, even though they've been pushed out.
Dangerous.
Understood. They want us away from the
A few minutes ago, we heard that the Russian helicopters doing some shelling, and it was nearby us. So we need to go to save your life and going from this city.
Is this happening a lot in Kupiansk? A lot of attacks?
Yes. Every day, Kupiansk under Russian shellings and Russian artillery. Quickly.
There's little sign of life now, but this is a big loss for the Russians. Some here don't criticize their former occupiers. They treated people normally, Alexander tells me. There was no torture, nothing like that. For us, it was no different with them or without them. They were here, but it feels like they weren't. They came and then they left. Others may have a different view. Either way, the shelling doesn't discriminate. I ask Lilia how she copes.
Ничего. Ничего.
I do nothing, she says. I stay home and pray that nothing hits the house. Ukraine's victory here is messy and incomplete, and some believe the Russians will be back. Orla Guerin, BBC News, Kupiansk.
The other daunting legal battle ahead for the former president for his businesses. The New York Attorney General's sweeping 220-page civil fraud lawsuit against Trump, 3 of his adult children, and the Trump Organization.
That's right. Letitia James accusing the Trumps of deceiving lenders in a, quote, staggering fraud. That's the word she used. A scheme, she argues, that lasted over a decade. Our politics reporter Chris Eliza is at the Magic Hall to walk us through some of these just stunning numbers.
They really are. I want to start, Poppy, big picture. Why did Donald Trump do this? Well, it was to secure more favorable loan terms often to buy other things. So let's go through what he did. Okay, Trump Park Avenue, one of his properties. This is a lot of residential apartments and stuff. Appraised value in 2010, $750,000. These are rent controlled, so that's why it's so low, I'd say. Claimed value, $50 million. Now, I didn't get a math degree in college, but I'm going to say that's about $49 million difference. Okay, let's go. Same building in 2020. Appraised value, $84.5 million. Trump claimed $135.8. Again, $50-ish million difference. It's a big difference. Okay, 40 Wall Street, another Trump property. Appraised value, again, an independent appraiser said this property was worth between $200 and $220 million. What did Donald Trump say it was worth? Between $524 and $530 million. I'm just going to keep putting these numbers up here, not just because I learned how to subtract when I was in elementary school, but because they're so startling. $300 million delta between what Trump claimed and what it was actually appraised to be worth. Now, this one I found totally fascinating. So Donald Trump used to live in Trump Tower, as you well know. Remember, he came down the golden escalator when he announced his candidacy back in 2015. The actual square footage of where he lived, a triplex apartment in Trump Tower, is 11,000 square feet. That's still huge, right? But it was 11,000 square feet. He claimed that the square footage was 30,000 square feet, and he claimed that the value of just that apartment, just that one apartment, was $327 million. Letitia James, the New York State Attorney General, said that no apartment has ever been sold in New York City, which, Poppy, as you know, they're very expensive apartments in New York City, but no apartment has ever sold for $327 million ever. Why does all of this matter other than to say Donald Trump is really pretty far off when he estimates what his things are worth? Because he uses those estimates to buy other things. He used it to buy Trump National Doral. He used it to the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago. And then there's this. This is the one that I live closest to, the Trump Old Post Office. So he bought the old post office and made a Trump hotel out of it. He eventually wound up selling this property at a profit of $100 million. It's now a Waldorf Astoria. So he overvalues things. He uses the overvaluing of those things allegedly to obtain loans to buy other things that he makes massive profits on. That's the core of the case that Letitia James laid out. That's why you get to the $250 million that she's looking for a recompense.
Alexjones testifies at his defamation trial in Connecticut. Families of victims of the Sandyhook massacre successfully sued him for defamation after he said that massacre was a hoax. This trial will now determine how much he has to pay out. The InfoWars host bashed the proceedings, calling the trial, quote, a travesty of justice.
CBS News correspondent Nikki Batiste joins us now with more. Nikki, what was the tone of the courtroom as Jones took the stand today? What did he have to say?
Well, it's been a little bit bizarre, actually, because so much of the testimony today has been interrupted by sidebars. The two lawyers trying to decipher with the judge what should and should not be talked about. The judge ruled that the First Amendment in other cases involving Alexjones can't be part of the testimony. So really, Alexjones hasn't said a whole lot yet today. He's been asked a lot of yes and no questions. A lot of them he says he doesn't remember. And the plaintiff's lawyers keep pressing him on previous depositions. But what is interesting is just this week, Alexjones, in a press conference right outside the courthouse, called the judge a tyrant. So this is the first time we see him right there next to her. He was asked about that on the stand today. Do you think Judge Bellis is a tyrant? Do you call people tyrants? And he said, only when they act like it.
Okay.
Really, raises your eyebrows because this all centers around something so traumatic for these families. I know that also the judge, this testimony is being live streamed there in Connecticut, but they had to limit comments being posted on that live stream because of threats from the general public. So a very bizarre case unfolding. What about those relatives that I mentioned? What impact has their testimony had on this case, if they had it so far, or at least, their point of view in all of this?
We heard from several family members of victims yesterday, and an emotional testimony. I'll speak about one of them. Vicky Soto was a first grade teacher who lost her life in Sandyhook. Her sister testified that the family had received threats online and in person. She was so fearful at times that when asked if she was the sister of Vicky Soto, sometimes she would say no to strangers because she just didn't know who they were, if they were supporters of Alexjones. She said it's just, you can't imagine what it's like to hear this being, called a hoax. And she also said that photos of her family had been posted by Alexjones supporters, calling them crisis actors, which is something Alexjones has said in his various theories, that Sandyhook was just a bunch of actors. So, at the end of this day, this case is up to 6 jurors who are deciding, as you mentioned, the damages that should be paid out by Alexjones to these 8 families, the 8 families we heard from, and also 1 FBI agent.
Traumatic for those families to have lost the people that they love, and then doubly traumatic to be called a hoax. And then on top of that, these supporters of Alexjones attacking them. He's facing several other lawsuits, Nikki, out of Connecticut and Texas. Tell us, where did those stand?
So originally there were 4 lawsuits. He was found liable in all of them. So now what's happening is there are 3 trials to decide. 2 of the lawsuits were combined. There are 3 trials to decide the damages for each. Last month, a trial in Texas found him, a jury ordered him to pay about $50 million in damages to the parents of one of the children who lost his life. This trial will decide, it's up to the jury, what the damages should be paid in this case. And then there's a third trial that's expected to happen in Texas next year. Lana and Errol.
All right, Nikki Batiste, thank you very much.
Thanks, Nikki.
A couple of Trump allies are expected to be in front of a Fulton County grand jury today, including somebody whose name I'm sure you recognize, SidneyPowell. Prosecutors also hope to hear from former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows early next week. The Fulton County DA has said she expects the fact-finding stage of this investigation will wrap up sometime this year. I want to bring in NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander, who's in Atlanta for us. So, Blaine, talk about the key info they think they'll get out of SidneyPowell and what this signals about where this investigation stands now. Well, Hallie, it signals that we are now squarely in the phase of this investigation where the DA wants to hear from people who are close to the former president. You know, when you kind of go through the list of people that you know she's called before the Fulton County grand jury, it includes Georgia's alternate or so-called fake electors. It includes a number of state officials. Those have already gone. Now we're looking to hear from people. The DA, rather, is looking to hear from people, in her words, who had close ties with the former president. So certainly a new phase and a more expanded phase of this investigation. Now, as it relates to SidneyPowell, we know that there are two things that you'll want to hear from SidneyPowell. One, that have to do with those hearings that took place before a number of Georgia legislators in the days immediately following the 2020 election. We know that SidneyPowell played a role in setting those up. That's where Rudy Giuliani, of course, came down to Georgia and spouted a number of conspiracy theories, really, about Georgia's election. That's something that DA Fani Willis has made clear she wants to ask SidneyPowell about. The other has to do with something that we've talked a lot about here recently on your show. That's Coffee County, the rural county here in Georgia, and that's being investigated for having elections information and data breached. Well, we know that SidneyPowell hired some data company to go down there and actually find information, get information, and we know that DA Fani Willis is going to want to ask her about that as well. So two things right there that she's going to want to ask SidneyPowell, and also kind of gives a look into other lines of questioning that she's going to hope to present to other people who were very close to the former president's inner circle. Now, I do want to remind you of the timeline here, Hallie. You brought that up. You know, the fact that she says that she expects to be finished with this by the end of the year, at least the fact-finding part. We've got about 2 weeks or so before people can start submitting absentee ballots here in the state of Georgia. And Fani Willis has made it clear that starting October 7th, when that happens, she's going to enter a so-called dark period. That means she's not going to issue subpoenas. We're not going to see any potential indictments or really any activity once that begins, Hallie.